This is the second part of the making of a box for my jeweler's Vise project, where I finish by making the lid. The lid of this box is much taller than the average box, and in this video I'll look at the problems this throws up and how to deal with them. The new dimension I need to make the lid is the height. The height is from the lip of the tray to a bit above the top of the vise. A few millimetres is also taken up inside the lid by the thickness of the top board. I could probably get away with 155 millimetres, but I decided to play it safe and use 160 millimetres. The other dimensions should be the same as the outside tray of the base. But the fit was a bit loose and I had to shim it out a bit, so I dropped the dimensions slightly to 135mm square for the top piece of board. I'll start cutting board, which gives me an opportunity to talk about the name of this box. I've sort of half-heartedly been calling it a neck box because the inside tray extends like a neck that fits inside the lid. Razors and cigars used to come in similar boxes, and for this reason some people call them cigar or razor boxes. It's also the design of Harrison's fireproof book box, but no one calls it a fireproof box. Someone pointed out that in one of the titles I called it the nested tray box, and they thought that could be the name, which it could, except it's boring. The name I liked the most was top hat box, because when you take the lid off it's like tipping your top hat, and the tall shape is a bit like a top hat. The reason I'm not going to adopt it is that most of these boxes I've made have been the other orientation, where the lid is the thin part and then it doesn't look near as top hat shaped. So I think the jury's still out on the name, but I appreciate the suggestions and the comments. You'll see clearly inside the lid, so I want to line this board to make it look nice. The Fabriano is good paper for lining, as the extra weight means it's less likely to stretch and wrinkle from applying the glue to the board instead of the paper. In box making, it's often convenient to break guidelines such as which material to apply the adhesive to when laminating. It's good to know that these guidelines exist, and then you can decide, based on the materials you're using, if this is going to be a problem. Normally, you apply the adhesive to the thinner material as it will stretch more. If you apply the adhesive to the thicker material, there's a chance that when the moisture transfers to the thinner material, it will stretch more than the thicker material, and this will cause wrinkles. This heavier paper will stretch less, if at all. Combined with using a thick, dry PVA adhesive, there's very little chance of this paper wrinkling. I do keep all the grain directions aligned. The main difference in how I make this lid is how I deal with the unusual height or depth of this tray. I do this by using the card lamination technique on two of the sides. It's hard to align the long joints and keep them aligned during the jigsaw puzzle phase of putting the box together. Having the lip produced by the card makes this task much easier. The card needs to be added to the two sides that are shorter, the same width as the base. This forms a ledge for the longer sides to sit in. The downside to adding the card to the sides is that the protruding card means the magnetic clamps can't be used. I'm using a fast tacking EVA PVA, so I just need to hold the sides in position for a minute or even less, and in this short time it's cured enough that I can let it go. I was in a bit of a hurry with this box and I just went ahead and trimmed the overhanging card once the glue had tacked. It would be safer to let it dry for at least 10 minutes. The cameraman must have forgotten to push the record button because I couldn't find any video of measuring and cutting the cloth for the sides. It's the same process as the outer tray of the base. I think I cut the cloth so it would extend 30mm down the inside of the walls, which is more than the 20mm of the neck of the base, and 15mm onto the outside top. To cover a lid, I would normally use the single piece covering method for trays. This avoids seams around the top edge or any chance of seeing turn-ins under the top covering piece. But because of the height of this lid, it would have required a large piece of cloth, and I'd have cut away large pieces at the corners, which seemed wasteful. Instead, I decided to wrap the lid just like the outside base tray. I don't think I described covering the outside base tray either. I have a full video on this where I struggle to describe this process in words. Instead of talking, I'll let you enjoy some Bach and watch me cover the box walls. If I just put a piece of cloth on the top as it is now, you'd clearly see the outline of the cloth turned over the edges and onto the top. That would be unacceptably ugly. This is easily fixed by filling in between the cloth with some card the same thickness as the cloth. Luckily, my standard 300 GSM or 10-point card is close enough to do the job. I'm also lucky in that the space between the cloth is within 1mm of being square and all the edges are straight enough. Otherwise, I might have to trim the edges of the cloth and peel some off to make fitting the card fill-in possible. I just have to cut a piece of square card the right size and glue it in place. Notice how I don't measure the size and transfer with the ruler. I put the squared piece of card in position and transfer the distance directly to the card with the tip of my knife. Finally, I cut a piece of cloth a whisker smaller than the top and glue it in place. I've had a lot of requests for this box. I hope this satisfies that demand for now. There are other ways of making this box, but I like how easy this method is and how strong the resulting box is. It is interesting how boxes for actual cutthroat razors were made, which is a folding method, and I might make a video on this in the future, since I've already invested the time making some prototypes and studying the box my grandfather's razor is in. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Thanks for spending some time with me. Until next time, cheerio.